TrekWars Duels Across the Stars, Episode 14, Top 5 Trilogies. Tertiary Adjunct 5 of 3.
It is a dark time for the rebellion. Although they have defeated the Empire, Darth Olympus claims Star Wars has the best trilogies. He dispatched stormtroopers who drove the rebels from their hidden base. Little does Darth Olympus know that Star Wars has a rival threatening its dominance. Dojin, a diplomat from the United Federation of Planets, has been sent to tell the evil Galactic Empire that Star Trek, in fact, has the best trilogies. To solve this argument before war breaks out again, three brave souls have banded together to decide the top five trilogies from Star Trek and Star Wars in an attempt to settle this debate forever.
Welcome to our Top 5 Trilogies. We all know Star Wars is famous for its trilogies, whether that's the prequels, sequels, or the original trilogy, but we are going to compare it to Star Trek here. And before you think, where has Star Trek got its top 3 trilogies, or top 3, top 5 trilogies? We are here to debate that, and that's what our three lovely people here, or two lovely people and me, are here to do. So, can I introduce my co-host?
Me, I'll go first. Me at Olympus. Great to be here with you again, Ben. And with us, special guest returning.
Uh, Hi, that's me. I'm Arwyn, uh, calling in from across the pond again, and I'm so thrilled to be back. Um, Hi.
It's
Oh, thank
great
you.
to
Yeah,
have you back with us.
and thank you very much for doing the crawl. And it is honestly a complete coincidence that we've had Arwen here for his third appearance when we are doing trilogies. Yeah. So
Didn't notice that.
Isn't that lovely symmetry?
yeah,
Wow. And I apologize to all of the UK audience and abroad for my obnoxious American accent in the crawl. Thank you for tolerating me.
I loved it, and not only that, first take, and you did it like bang on. I think we just need to get our guest stars to do the crawls all the time, Ben.
definitely,
Beginner's luck.
definitely. It sounds like a
Beginner's luck. Thank you,
good
Ben.
idea. So when we do our shows, we give ourselves rules to how we pick our picks. Um, so tell you what, Olympus, did you have any rules for your picks at all? How you were going to pick your trilogy?
Yes, I have two. So first one I've kept similar to the last episode that we did. The picks must be from Star Trek or Star Wars. So that's number one. My other rule is that there must be some form of clear connection to three as a concept, whether that is a three episode or three movie story arc, whether it's a series that spans three seasons, whether it is character development across three episodes, whether it's something that relates to that number three. So both a little bit specific and a little bit vague at the same time there, but it allowed me to branch out with my choices a little bit because I was struggling at the start here. So yeah, that's why I went with that rule. Sort of helped me get a few extra choices in and give me a bit to pick.
Oh, that like sound of that. Arwen, what are your rules, if any?
Well, my rules, that was great, Ben. Or excuse me, Olympus. Olympus is all the other two times I've been on Olympus has been lauding my method of choice for my criteria, and I just want to throw it back at you.
Oh, thank you.
That was great. That was awesome. I can't follow that other than to say I agree with what Olympus said. I didn't. I struggled also with character versus story arc. But for me, it was, three three stories, typically in a row, that tell the same story, that are connected with the same characters. Um, if I had gone character arc, I would have gone crazy. Um, I'm kind of coveting what you said about the spanning three seasons part, because I was like, oh, I wish I had done that. But you know what? I'm fine with my choices. We'll see how this goes. Those are that was my criteria.
Brilliant. Ben?
So I have done a similar thing, which was it has to be, or one of the things, it could be a story arc that relates to three things, whether that's like the three films from, like, say, the prequels films, for example, or it's a story one in a TV show, for example, where it could be three episodes. But my one, it could also be three people that are in a story together, and it's usually always those three or related to those three people. So
Tricky.
Like that as well. I could hazard a guess at where you're going with that, but I will keep my lips sealed and wait till we get to the
fair
choices.
enough. Cool. So before we go get started, do we tell each other before here, or do we learn for the first time as we
We
go along?
we absolutely do not unless it's your spouse sitting right next to you when you're doing the actual episode. Reference back to the last episode we did. No, not at all. We do not share our picks. I feel it really helps create more genuine reactions and responses from all of us, and I find it really good fun. That element of no planning to it. So yes, really excited and looking forward to hearing what you guys have both picked.
So am I, and I've been looking forward to this because we one thing we have been talking is how it's going along, not what our picks are, but how it's going along, and I've been excited to go. The other two here are how much they, not quite they were struggling, but it was like, come on, I was finding this easy. It's like
No,
so
struggle
I
was
am.
there.
It was to quote Bluey, difficult.
Oh, oh, go home. That's it. You win. You won the internet.
Yes.
So shall we get underway?
Before we do, I'm just gonna slip in a shameless plug, guys. Please, 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 please. First off, thank you for watching, but please, please, please hit that like and that subscribe button for us. It really, really does mean a lot. And we would also love to see your top 5 picks in the comments below. So please get adding into that as well.
Well, definitely, definitely.
Now, who wants to go first?
Shall we say guests first?
Let's do that. Absolutely. Arwen, you're up.
Oh boy. Okay. Well,
Haha.
I'm gonna feel badly if we have lots of duplicates. So, sure, I'll go first. So this is my this is my number five choice. This is from the Star Trek franchise, specifically from Voyager. And it is season three, episode 26, season four, episodes one and two. It is Scorpion, Scorpion 2, and The Gift. Um, huh. What do I want to say? I'm not sure how to structure this, so I'm just going to wing it and we'll see how this goes. I like, I was telling Ben and Olympus off camera earlier that I wasn't sure if I wanted to do story arc or character arc. And I typically conceptualize Star Trek and Star Wars shows in terms of character. I don't necessarily think of the story that much. I mean, obviously it's there, but when I think of memorable moments, it always has to do with characters, not with what happened. Um, so this was tough for me to frame my brain. What I liked about Scorpion was the high stakes of it. I liked that this was Voyager came out and it was supposed to be, the premise of it was supposed to be more adversarial, or at least that's what people were thinking. It's going to be two diametrically opposed crews working together to somehow get home. And it turned out to be they resolved their differences very quickly. And this was the first time I really thought that, especially Janeway and Chakotay, were at each they had very different opinions about what needed to happen in this episode, or in this story, and the stakes were super high. I don't know if you remember the opening sequence, with the Borg just being, the Borg showing up on
Bang.
screen and then just being blown away, by what we later learned was species A472, or how they're called in Star Trek Online, the Undine, although I don't know if
Yes.
that's canon. Um, and that just sent shivers down my spine. Um, and it project it, it continued on. My brain freeze there. The story progressed where Janeway just was unhinged. She was so desperate to get her crew home that she was willing to deal with the devil, basically, and brilliantly, but recklessly. And it was fun to see Chakotay being like the voice of reason there, considering he's the Maquis member, right? So that was an interesting little flip. And let's see, what else did I want to say about it? Oh, Voyager looked awesome with the Borg implants on it. I wish they had kept them longer because I thought that was neat. And Seven of Nine, what can you say about Seven of Nine? I mean, the character was incredible from the start. Um, and I added the gift in there because it really was. It was the continuation of this big event that happened in Scorpion 1 and Scorpion 2, where we saw Janeway helping Seven to accept the reality of what's happened to her, and to start to deal with that. And we said goodbye to Kess.
Yeah,
And
I was thinking of that.
I know the actor, has had more than her fair share of struggles, um, but I liked her character, and I was sorry to see her go. And it was interesting because I was reading, that they were going to get rid of Kim. They almost killed Kim off. They were going to get rid of that character, and then, because apparently Garrett Wong, this might be anecdotal, but this was in a documentary that I had watched. Apparently Garrett Wong, he was a young actor and not very disciplined, and um, they kind of thought he was redundant, and were getting ready to get rid of him. You notice he got infected with that the A472 virus or whatever it was, and he was on death's door, and then they brought him back, and they decided to get rid of Jennifer Leon instead. Um, Kim was never my favorite character. Don't hate me, people. So I
Well,
was actually kind of disappointed. I would have kept Kess and got rid of Kim. But mileage may vary on that.
all I'll
But
say
anyway,
is that he was not promoted for a reason.
right? Love it,
Mm,
love it. Thank you.
They could have
Yeah,
done a lot more with both Kez character and Kim character. They could have got Kez doing a nurse story, more of a nurse story. Um, Kim given more responsibility. They were playing responsibility to idiot. It's a bit, yeah, it was a bit rubbish on that one. Um, and I don't know how true it is. And I've heard a similar anecdote, but my added one is he appeared on like a top 50 sexiest men or something like that, and I
yeah. It
don't
was
know.
People Magazine. People Magazine
Uh,
top 50 sexiest men. Yeah.
oh, I was not far off with top 50. Then that was complete.
Hmm.
So it was
I think
that, and
that's
it was
right.
just yeah, and it was just like yeah. At least they don't just do it to the female characters, which they mainly be doing with certain other female character on the Voyager show. But
indeed.
uh, oh, I love that pick, and it's also I was thinking the story of Kez as well a little bit. So from her hearing, seeing all these images, um, we were given the gift to put them through uh, walk space.
What did you think, Olympus? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Phenomenal pick. I mean, some of my favorite episodes of Voyager. There's not much more I can add but that. And I would definitely agree with you on Harry Kim. It's not that I dislike the character, it's just that I feel like they didn't really utilize and use him enough. And there are points that he was a bit annoying. Um, to me, when you compare him to someone like Tom Paris, who was that more rogue Han Solo-ish type character, and actually him being the one that was meant to be that little bit more annoying maybe in the early episodes, really didn't come off that way at all. So no, really, really good picks. I'm really glad you picked those. And between the Borg and 8472 again, I'll add I got the exact same chill that you mentioned when I first saw those Borg ships being completely obliterated at the start of that first episode out of the blue. You just think, what can be powerful enough to do that to the Borg?
Yeah, I don't know how many it was, 7, 9, something like that. Oh, sorry, 7 and 9. Sorry, that was complete accident. Coming past the ship, Voyager, and just knocking it for
Yeah.
6, and then one stopping, looking and go, not going to worry about that. Carry on, then
15.
Voyager coming there and going,
I want to say 15 in the back of my head.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Not surprised. They mentioned so many numbers. There was like 1, 3. Whatever, yeah. It was like, yeah, that is scary. And when we went on to one of the bio ships, it's like one of the Borgs to like having difficulty adapting the ship to what they want.
Oh, that's right. The Borg was trying to assimilate was it a pod or a ship or something, and it was failing to.
Because it was like organic rather than the and nothing they've come across before, so they don't know how to deal with it. Yeah, they're used to humans and other similar
Species from their space, I guess. I mean, fluidic space is almost interdimensional kind of scenario, isn't it?
yeah. And to be honest, I really got to go back on Star Trek Online and play more around with that and
Well, there are
story.
weapons and cosmetics that you can add to sort of build your ship up to look kind of similar to what they did to Voyager in those episodes as well, which I've never worked out how to do. Again, I'm going to have to get back on and play it and learn because it does look really cool.
Okay, so if that's that, I go next because I've got something that is similar-esque.
Go for it.
That is actually from the same show. It is involving Borg, and that is 2 of 9, 3 of 9, and 4 of 9. The rest of Seven's Unimatrix that appear on the show together in what's the episode called? I think in Dark Frontier, but I think that's wrong. No, Dark Frontier. Um, and it includes character that is along the lines of Jeffrey Combs, who plays a lot of the characters, and I've suddenly forgot his name. So somebody please help me while I'm clicking on. Vaughan Armstrong.
All right, I
Um,
know the name now. Yeah.
yeah, who's played probably more Star Trek characters than Jeffrey Combs, to be honest. Um, yeah, we see them first appear on Voyager when they've basically got an open day for everybody to chat with other species. They interact. They are basically hunting down. I say hunting down. They're trying to find 7 and 9, who was part of their collective. Um, and gradually, as the show goes on, the episode goes on, we find out these people were re-assimilated because of 7 and 9. Who was we find out the 3 other characters there, 2, 3, and 4, are characters who were assimilated as adults, whereas 7 and 9 was assimilated as a child, and she was scared out of her mind to out of the collective because she didn't know anything else. And they wanted to come back and I don't know if it's almost revenge they went for, but it was like not. To be honest, I completely forgot why they were exactly why they were coming back. But revenge because it's been so long since I've watched the episode, but it was a great episode. I just enjoyed that so much.
Oh, it's a fair point. I know exactly what episode you're talking about. I really enjoyed it. can't actually remember the detail behind it though. How they were stranded, why they were trying to get back. I can't quite remember what happens, but
I remember
I'm
those
definitely
three.
going to go rewatch it.
Yeah, definitely. I know those three were like a mini collective because yeah, Seven got them back together, and yeah, and luckily the Doctor managed to give them the choice to go from this mini collective and live their own lives, even if it was to die. They couldn't hear each other's thoughts anymore. Any thoughts, Arwyn?
I'm just thinking, Ben, 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 you clever little monkey. Uh, that is a great callback reference. I barely remember that episode, um, but I do remember Seven's fear, and it was like a tantrum. She had a tantrum at a time, and a tantrum are needs coming out sideways. You know, and she didn't do the just like any of us can relate when we're at a low point in our life and we act out in a way that's not in our best interest or the best interest of people around me. It was a very human thing for her to do, ironically enough. So great choice.
Okay. And I have to just suddenly remembered they did do a good joke about taste like chicken. So it was like taste like a bird I used to I once ate
Oh,
when I
I
was
don't
young.
remember that.
I'd forgotten all
Oh,
about that as well.
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, brilliant
Cool.
pick, Ben.
Yes, good pick.
So that's my number five pick. So 2 of 9, 3 of 9, and 4 of 9.
Ooh, on to me.
Oh, yes.
I keep, up until the start of this recording, as so often, I keep moving my pick order up and down. I've locked it in now, I can't budge it again. So all my hands are being folded like this. My number five, I'm going to pull us away from Star Trek. Let's go into Star Wars. Um, and this is also not a traditional trilogy. It's also a little bit different to the two trilogies that we've just heard. So far we've heard a trilogy of characters from Ben, a trilogy of episodes from Arwyn. This is a trilogy of seasons from The Mandalorian, which is currently 3 seasons long. And whoop whoop, it's been announced that they're making a movie, The Mandalorian and Grogu, but obviously can't talk about that because they've not done it yet. The Mandalorian is phenomenal television for me to watch. Season 3, you could arguably say that bits of it are a little bit slower than seasons 1 and 2, but they kind of need it. The reason I love the show so much is because it pulls you away from the world of lightsabers and force users and all that mystical stuff, and it also pulls you away from all the glitter and glam of let's call it high society in that galaxy, and really sticks you down in the real world, inverted commas. You get to see a much grittier life in that universe that you probably haven't seen much, if anything, of in any of the previous movies or shows. And I've really, really loved that before you even get into looking at characters like the Mandalorian and how mysterious he was at the start, never taking his helmet off. So you don't get to see him. It's a while until you learn his name. You don't really know what his objectives are. You don't know what his drivers are when it comes to Grogu to begin with either. And they just jigsaw it all together very, very nicely over the first season or two. To a point where you've got two characters, and more than that, you've got several different side characters that come across that you really love dearly. And then it gets properly into the sort of Mandalorian frame when you get into season 3, when you look at Mandalore as a species and as a planet, and what's sort of going on in the sort of wider, maybe not political frame of it, but sort of wider Mandalorian clans and what's happening with them. And getting reintroduced to their planet at the end. I'm not going to go too much more into it because anyone who has not watched it should. So get onto Disney Plus and get it watched. So yeah, that was my number 5 pick, which is seasons 1, 2, and 3 of The Mandalorian. And I guess I'll just round off by saying across all 3 seasons, as much as you're looking at different maybe stories and different missions across the different episodes, all 3 I think interconnect in such a lovely way that develops the Mandalorian and Grogu's characters up to a point where at the end of season 3 they very easily could just end it there, and they've rounded it off very nicely for them. So yes, I'll stop talking now. What do you guys think?
I like the pick. I've got a bit of a love-hate relationships with Mandalorian. There's certain bits that I really like. There his interaction with the other Mandalorians, various groups. Um, I love some of his interactions with Grogu, but at one point I was getting really fed up. I know we're having this father out of water kind of thing, or guardian out of water kind of things, but it was just like at some point I was going, stop being a complete and utter
Moopsie.
about it. And yeah, it annoyed me at sometimes, but and finding out about the Mandalorian culture, um, or different cultures, um, his interaction with some other people, including Bo-Katana, and he set another character that, I'm not character that got sacked, but actress who got actor got sacked for perfectly good reasons. Um, I'm not going to have a go at the character themselves. Um, um, is some of even the episodes where you don't necessarily concentrate on the Mandalorian Society. And is it? I can't remember if it's this. No, I'm thinking of the wrong episode. I was about to go. There's been a couple where they've gone off and done. It's about from other shows that are absolutely not related to, and I was thinking something from Ahsoka where they were on Coruscant. It was just like I could not put them together. Uh,
No, although in
yes,
saying that, it is in The Mandalorian that you're introduced to Ahsoka Tano in live action for the very first time. That was in
uh,
one episode, if I remember right, in season 1.
must be when they were meeting Luke, I think, wasn't it? Yeah.
No, it
Oh,
was Mandalorian was finding Ahsoka to guide him and Grogu to
that was it.
Grogu's home, or to the Jedi, basically.
Yeah, and yeah, no, that I found interesting and I liked, and yeah, was good. Some of the fighting was good. I really enjoyed that. Um, yeah, as I said, love hate relationship was it, but do 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 like the pick, really do.
No, thank you, mate. And what do you think? But blah 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 blah. Thank you, mate. And what do you think, Arwyn?
I think the Mandalorian. Great choice. I think the Mandalorian is breath of fresh air. Um, I enjoyed. I, I know people have talked about the pacing. I know people have talked about, hey, at times it doesn't feel like the Mandalorian show so much as it feels like the Boba Fett show, or it feels like the Ahsoka show. It's like we're trying to introduce all these, trying to, have this surreptitious way to introduce new programs. And those are fair points. I enjoyed it tremendously. I loved all the interesting new characters that it introduced. The Ugnaught in like the first couple episodes, whose name I can't remember, incredible. The Jawas, stupendous. Amy Sedaris' character, I think we've touched on her in previous shows, podcasts, recordings. I love that show, and I love the evolution of uh, Din Djarin's character going from this hardened bounty hunter to, his heart melting just a little bit, just a tiny bit of empathy, which opened up him. And then by the third season, the scope of the show had expanded so much, and his role in his culture. Um, I like that show a great deal, and I think that's a great choice. And I'm kind of jealous that I didn't choose it.
Thank you.
And another thing I just remembered was him getting used to droids and his hatred of droids
Oh
is
yes.
it got over as well. Um,
Hmm.
made me think as well. That one, it was one of the, was it IG-88 or was there another one IG unit that I got to know there or
That was
No.
towards the end of season 1, wasn't it? The assassin
yeah
droid. If you first see him in the first episode. Damn, can't remember now. There's a statue to the droid that you see in season 3.
yeah
Um,
definitely.
no, you're right. He hates droids at the start, and you slowly learn and understand why. And yeah, I love how he overcomes that. Very well remembered. I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah, no, it's understandable. It's I know some of the things I haven't watched for so long. It's like it's
Yeah,
starting to forget.
yeah, but they do obviously. They've left such a strong impact on us. We remember them as we're trying to think through these picks and what we want to put down, which shows you just how good they are. But no, yeah, that was me. Number 5, The Mandalorian. So, Arwen, do you want to move on to number 4?
Sure. My number 4 choice is also from Star Trek. It is. uh, I want to say too, these lists were difficult to make. At first, I wasn't spoiled for choice. I was struggling to come up with enough.
Mm-hmm.
And then once I opened myself up a bit once I understood my idea of what a trilogy was better, then they started pouring in.
Mm-hmm.
So in the end, I had a tough time whittling this down to 5. And this one made it because it's a nostalgic favorite. Um, this is the Next Generation episode, Best of Both Worlds, Part 1, Part 2, and then Family, which was the epilogue for
Yep.
that particular story. Um, I remember when this first came out. This was before TiVo. This was before DVRs, and I'm dating myself a bit here. Uh, this episode came out, and then you had to wait the entire summer to see, and it was only broadcast live. You know, you had to record it on your VCR, and I didn't have a VCR, so and I was away at college, and I had to actually bribe a friend to record Best of Both Worlds Part 2 for me, to have his mother record it for me, um, because I didn't have access to that. And it was an agonizing summer because that was the first real cliffhanger. I feel the first impactful cliffhanger for Star Trek.
Yep.
I mean, they just blew that storyline up. You know, it's like, was Picard dead? Was he coming back? Who's captain? What the hell is with this Commander Shelby? What's going on? You know, they raised the stakes so high. And I think it's a shame that they didn't stick with that. You know, like part of me is like, it would have been interesting to have seen. I mean, I love Patrick Stewart, but it would have been interesting to see him take a back seat or to bring Shelby in or something. Um, I thought it was agonizing. Part 2 had some great strategy. You got to see the devastation of Wolf 359, and that was super cool from a geeky nerd perspective to see this, horrible thing happen, and how they just had the ship kits all um, bashed up, and that was pretty cool. There was some great character development in that. Like every character I think had something practically. Shelby and Commander Riker. I mean, Shelby, come on. I mean, that one line in the turbo lift. If you can't make the big decisions, I suggest you stand aside and let someone who can. Or some I forget, I'm
No,
paraphrasing
you're
it.
pretty much there, and it was a look on
Oh, it's
Riker's face that just
man, just put Riker in his place. So good. And then there was an even cute little line between Data and Geordi. You know, the early bird gets the worm, and I think there are no vernicula species on this planet. It's like, no, but she did air. It was good writing. It was mostly good writing. Oh, and then part two, I loved Guinan in that. Guinan I thought was so well used. I mean, her and Riker, when he was Captain Riker, and he's like, "That is your chair now." She had to come in and set him straight,
Yeah.
um, which was incredible. And then Picard the touring the ship while they're in the nebula, and talking to Guinan, and I mean, he has this wonderful line, you know, um, "I think we're going to survive." It's a conceit, but it's health. It's a healthy conceit. And Guinan gives him some several hundred-year perspective, and talks about turning the page. How this isn't the end. I could go on and on and on. And then I do want to say too, I included family in this because I think family is essential. I thought the writers were super smart to recognize that this traumatic thing had happened and that the characters and the audience needed a breather. And it was all character development. Like we got to see Worf's parents, which were my heart. I mean, those parents could not have been better for Worf. Um, get Picard and his brother, obviously, that was a major storyline. Troy and Picard, their discussion in the beginning. Troy and Beverly talking about um, the message that Wesley's dad had left for Wesley. Um, Even Picard and his sister-in-law, like she was like that family was just so perfect. And yeah, I thought it was that. I'm gonna shut up now. What do you guys think?
I'm going to add just a little tag at the end there that the Picard family reunion side of it, and it was so poignant and so pointed and so perfect, but it really, really actually feeds very well into Generations. I think they made a brilliant choice, as sad as it is. What they did in
Yeah.
Generations really, really worked, especially if you watch that trilogy of episodes. And outside of that, I am going to say nothing else for now and pass over to Ben.
Okay.
Okay, you got me intrigued. Okay. Um, yeah, it is a brilliant double act, and it is a brilliant trilogy, and that family episode was strange, considering we don't usually talk about that on TNG and stuff like that. So, like, generally, okay, you had Troy on there to talk about your feelings, but we didn't really talk about our feelings very much on this show, and it was good to bring that up.
Especially Picard. I think that was the biggest one. Picard, he talks at several points in the first couple of seasons about the line that he's got between being a captain, being a friend, etc., and how he can't open up too much. You hear him talking to Diana about that a lot. Um, so that was a big eye opener.
Yeah. I wasn't watching because I'm over in the UK. We weren't watching this live, unlike now, for the most part, where it's actually a nice thing they've done with Discovery. They seem to be releasing it on the same day as America. Before they've been doing it the day after for the most part.
Oh,
Um,
it's about time.
I know,
yeah,
right?
and yeah, we got Star Trek way after uh, America. I wasn't aware of it at the time, but we did, and I was watching it on syndication in the UK, and on the channel I was watching it, Sky One, weren't necessarily always in order. And even though I didn't experience that thing from the Best of Both Worlds 1 and 2, it was like that for a lot of the shows where it's just like, what's happened between there? We're suddenly getting a gap that I've got no idea what that context is in the middle, or suddenly we go back in time where we have a character that wasn't there anymore. or something like that. So, and it's like,
Oh yeah.
was really annoying at the time. And so, if I suddenly went to college for a college, and it's like, yeah, I didn't see it, or we had a family meal, or we went out and done something, yeah, I missed it. So I get that feeling that it's missed, and it wasn't until I got the box sets DVDs, which I think there's an Enterprise one there, uh, that I actually got to see these all in order and get to know all the stories and stuff like that. So
It's a discontinuity that was very true of back then. That millennials present day just will never understand or experience. No offense, guys, but you won't. I mean, Arwyn mentioned VHSs or VCRs. Again, my daughter will never know what a VCR or a VHS is. She'll never know, which is a big shame. Because, and
I
don't
don't
get me wrong, the
know.
quality
That's
of them was atrocious. The sound audio quality was abysmal, but oh my god, you could record anything on those things. Anyway,
you
I
could,
digress.
but
Sorry.
you had to watch it in the order in which you recorded it.
Indeed. And if anyone
Yeah.
ever overtaped it with a sports match, oh no.
Mhm.
no, yeah, I got used to do mixtapes on this, and this is still going to date me because I'm going to think it was like doing your iPod, putting stuff, and both of those are still outdated now, and it's like,
Yeah, that's the
don't want
thing.
to tell your own.
Kids today, when we mention iPods, they'll probably go, "What's an iPod?"
Yeah. Okay, shall we go off three three old men talking about stuff from back in the
Touche.
day?
Yes, please.
Touche. We're showing our
No,
ages.
So
definitely.
I just went. So who is next?
What am I look that way? Hi, Ben.
Oh, it's me.
Okay.
Hey. So, um, I am going to stay with a 3 episode arc. This one was actually deliberately meant as a trilogy. This is going to Enterprise, or Star Trek Enterprise as it was known, for season 3 and 4. And this is the Vulcan trilogy. So they've done several things in here, nostalgic things, and they put like had an augment trilogy. Um, there was 2 episodes about the about T'Pol and Trip having the child.
Mm-hmm.
They also visited Vulcan um, for this, and um, started or reasonably early on with a bombing of the embassy, Earth, a United Earth embassy on Vulcan, and we find out that there was a Serenite who was responsible for bombing, responsible, or set up, shall we say? We'll get to that point. At this point, I didn't know the name, so when they said, I think was it T'Pau, I
Mhm.
had no idea who she is, and this was the first time I actually found out about her. Do originally know her from the original series. But this is the first time I knew about her, and T'Pol and Archer went searching for her in the forge. Uh, they met Serenites, um, found out about the Cutrer, and found out she was completely set up by Vulcans who not going to say the Vulcans, the Vulcan government set her up, and we spent 3 episodes finding out about the culture's mind melds, Paul's mum, Pal, and the not the Cutrer. What's in mind? What's the device they went to find the little pyramid?
Dear Shara.
Which Sarah, thank you. Uh, which which they thought was a myth, and they managed to find it and bring it back, and actually it's the overthrow of the government. And this is where the Vulcans are actually allies, as in equals with Earth, rather than an over uh, overlords, but a superior government, superior race, superior whatever you want to call it, stuff. And I just really enjoyed that way episode, and the one where I believe the uh, Dorians got involved as well, having their fight with the Vulcans, and basically Earth's Enterprise stood in and stopped that and went, "You two, behave yourselves now, or else." So yeah, that's my free pick, and I am mixing and matching it there. So one of you would like to just bring us back on course, then would be.
Sure. Sorry, I look like I cut Olympus off.
No. I was about to say, but I wanted to see if you were going to say something first. So on you go.
Okay, I'm just going to say I'm so glad that you gave Enterprise some love in this in particular, because with you're absolutely correct. Trilogies, they excelled in that particular season, um, and there were a lot from which to choose. And this was actually one of my honorable mentions. So I'm over the moon. I think Star Trek or Star Wars or any IP actually is at its best when you get some major lore drops about, and you learn a lot more about a particular culture. And I loved it because up until Enterprise, the Vulcans were like this monolithic culture. They were all the same. They were all logical. Um, they were all dependable and honest. And Enterprise shattered that perception and showed, it was the first series I think that started to show, well, okay, DS9 a little bit. Let me give DS9 some credit. Um, but you really got to learn a lot about Vulcan. You got to learn about the deserts. You got to learn about uh, their background, the different factions. I think that was the first mention of the, what are they called? The Vulcan
Yep.
purists.
Yeah,
Um, so, and then there was all mysticism and the Kashara, and there was the whole drama with Trip and T'Pol and the arranged marriage, and it was all good. Even the architecture, like I was geeking out about the set designs
Mm-hmm.
when I watched that, because T'Pol's home was like, can I have that, please? Can I please have that home? Because that's just beautiful. The aesthetic choices were so good. Thank you, Ben. Thank you for giving Enterprise some love.
yeah.
I
So
mirror.
as much as they say, I do like Enterprise. Even the music, should I say, especially the music. But
Especially the
And
title
philosophy.
sequence.
actually, I do. It's bear in mind I skip through most title sequence on it, whether it's the OS, TNG, or Enterprise or Disco. I skip through most of them, but when I do listen, I do enjoy it. So,
I'm
so
not. I'm not going to lie. I'm probably one of the few people who doesn't skip through Enterprise's title sequence. I know it's the only Star Trek show that has a musical score like that, but that makes it special to me, and I love it. I'm not so keen on the upbeat version in season 4. Um, I think potentially that might have been season 3 as well. And if it was season 3 as well, then it definitely doesn't work with what they were up against. But yeah, not but Ben, brilliant pick across those 3 episodes. I can't really add much more again versus what you guys have already talked about. But yeah, probably one of the standouts for all 4 seasons of Enterprise for me.
so I agree, and it probably is my favourite season as a whole.
Yeah,
To be
and
honest,
you
so
do, to Arwen's point, get to see the humans finally stand up and start to act as almost as the leaders bringing the other species together to lead towards a federation, which is very nice to see because they're on the back foot before then.
Mhm. Yeah,
I,
that was Ben's
I
point. I didn't bring that up. I
Was
just
that
want to make
Ben's
sure
point?
credit.
Sorry.
That was Ben's point. I want to make sure we give
That's me
credit where
getting
credit's due.
totally confused.
and actually, one thing from that I can't remember if it is this episode or not, or one shortly after where they had the Andorians and the Tellarites at the table, and Archer went, "I'm not going to stop you at each other now if you run here on." And then shortly after, it was like, "Don't you act more like humans?" And then the Tellarite says, "I thought you were not going to insult us." This is like, it made me giggle, even though it's like Archer just gave that like mean look. It's just like, no time for jokes now. This is
Yeah,
the right time.
lovely.
So that's my number 4 pick, the Vulcan trilogy.
From Enterprise, thank you, Ben. My number 4 pick, I'm going to stay with Star Trek this time, but I'm going to jump universes to Kelvin. This is the Kelvin movie trilogy, of which apparently they're making a fourth now, which is a kind of prequel, but I'm not really sure if that would fit in the Kelvin timeline, considering when the timeline splits, so I'm a little bit dubious about that. A lot of Trekkies really don't like this movie series, and I actually genuinely love it. And I think a part of it is because I was able to very quickly at the start of the first movie separate it from the rest of Star Trek by going, okay, they've come through an interdimensional portal thingy. This is a different timeline. I can go with this alternate universe. Let's see what they do. And they completely opened up their creative abilities by doing that. I think it was a very, very smart play from the directing side of it and the writers. I think the casting is brilliant. The acting is phenomenal. Special effects are great, and I actually love the change in the phaser design as well. Instead of going for the typical hard yellow or orange or red solid beams to the more scatter fire laser firing pew 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 pew. It's more typical sci-fi pew 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 that you get, which is a lovely change, and getting to see a bit more of the TOS lore. When you bear in mind, for me, I'm someone who's never watched or been exposed to the original series, so seeing a bit more of that was brilliant. That helped really ground me more into the Star Trek's timeline. My favorite original series style character, probably Pike. I loved the version of Pike in the Kelvin timeline, not as much as I love the version of Pike in Strange New Worlds. But obviously didn't see that until more recently. But yeah, I loved Pike in it. And yeah, just it was yeah, typical Hollywood movie. It was very flash, action packed, sexy, very cool, and ultimately what I loved across the three films, especially the first and the second one, is how many more people got introduced to Star Trek and got pulled into the universe through those films. So whether you're watching this and you love the Kelvin timeline films or you hate them, I think you've got to accept and admit the fact that it did the fandom a lot of good and really helped in terms of driving the interest of Star Trek forward. And for fear of rambling, I'll probably end with a reference to my favourite of the three movies, which is the Into Darkness, and the absolute stellar performance that Benedict Cumberbatch plays as Khan. Favourite character out of those three movies. I think he does an absolutely brilliant job. He plays Khan in a brilliant and totally different way to the Khan that we see in the second TOS movie. And no dissing that Khan either. He was phenomenal too, but in a very different way. I'll probably stop there because I could keep going and I really shouldn't. They're my top three. They're my That's my top four. The Kelvin timeline
I
movies.
was wondering if somebody would bring this up at all, and I'm glad you did. So, hope I like them. Okay, I have a couple of nitpicks. Bridge of the Enterprise is really different. It's nice. It's great. It doesn't remind me of the Enterprise, but still good. The other one, I think I've got a review out there somewhere. Me go Khan role reversal with Spock and I think yeah,
Beautiful. No, you didn't like it. I loved it. I
no,
loved what they did there.
uh, fair enough. Okay, but other than that, I did love it. Star Trek or Star Trek '09 or J.J. Abrams Star Trek as I usually end up calling it because I can't just call it Star Trek in my head. Love it, and that's good comeback. Actually, I'm gonna as we're Star Trek versus Star Wars. I'm gonna bring it and compare it to Star Wars, the sequel trilogy. I heard people saying, "Oh, that's very similar to A New Hope." Let's go in my head. Actually, A, I don't care. B, if it's anything like Star Trek, might get new people into it.
Yep.
You said, and I have heard people who have gotten it because of those films. If it gets people in it, does it really matter?
Exactly.
Oh, we all have our ones, and Star Trek Beyond. Sorry, I have to say that, and that didn't really sound like Madness, but if you know the band Madness and the song Beyond, One Step Beyond, yeah, that was actually a good, great, really good film, and I that and the planet and the rescuing of oh yeah, was it the rest inferior the rescue finding out about the crew of that ship that was actually a reference to Enterprise.
I loved that reference. Getting to see an NX class on the big
Yeah.
screen on a movie. It just hit me there.
And that was before the actual change in the timeline as well, as that happened actually after. Give that
Which is
okay.
which is probably why they kept all the design and everything of it the same. And this is where another one of those things that I find helps me when I watch those movies. All the design changes after the point of Nero coming in. Forget the Kelvin ship for a second because that completely ruins this theory. Okay, just go with me.
Okay,
From that
can
point
do that.
on, in my head canon, that interaction forced Starfleet to design their ships differently and more combatively, which leads to the bigger ships, the bigger guns, the bigger everything, essentially. Yeah, forget the fact that the USS Kelvin's actually designed like that anyway.
And can I also just give a, thumbs up to McCoy in this new
Oh,
trilogy,
yeah.
and also big thumbs up to two of our fellow countrymen. The Scotty played by an Englishman, I think this time, isn't he?
Yes, Simon Pegg.
Instead of a Canadian.
Absolutely. No, good shout outs for both. And yeah, both of them played brilliantly. McCoy, though, wow. He's phenomenal. He's I I can't believe I didn't mention him. Back to Olympus.
Anyway, I'll win.
I can't add anything really. Just echo what you said about Carl Urban playing McCoy. He was such a standout. Boy, that cast, they seem to really like each other. You know, there was just something that came across in their performances. And I'll also say something about John Cho and Sulu. I I appreciated what they did. I don't know if I necessarily agreed with it, but I think John Cho added a certain amount of fun to the character, a certain amount of daredevil, kind of fly by the seat of your pants, um, and an authenticity and a competence that I think honored George Takei more than anything else they did in that. So, yeah.
anybody have any thoughts um, on they actually made him gay in this one, where
Hmm.
I know Decay said he never played the character as gay. Okay, he never said he played him as straight. He never played him as gay. Personally, I didn't care. It was like a good respect to George Decay. Does anybody else have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I saw it as a nod to Decay, but a very subtle nod, and again, one that doesn't take anything away from the movie in any way whatsoever. So I barely thought about it, to be honest.
Yeah, I was disappointed in George Takei. It was one of those few moments where I think he missed the mark. Um, I don't. His comments didn't seem to come across that he recognized the nod to him. Um, the comments that I had read were just basically, well, I was playing him as straight, and I would have preferred him to be straight. Um, I respect that. Sometimes I identify with that a little bit, because there's a big debate about can gay actors play straight parts and vice versa, which is beyond the scope of this podcast. I will say I thought John Cho did it with a lot of humility and
Mhm.
authenticity, and I liked his portrayal. Um, I wish Takei had softened his comments a little bit more, and been a little bit more respectful. But I can't speak for him. And as a gay person myself, I was thrilled to see representation on the screen. So that can never hurt.
Fantastic.
Thank you. No, it was a conversation at the time, and it was just like me. It was just like not. It's a non-issue. It was a non-issue for me, but before I bring it up, even even though it's a non-issue for me,
It's
but
interesting for me to hear as well, though, because I wasn't aware of George Takei's comments at the time. I wasn't following the social media element of that back then. Um,
Good for
so,
you.
so yeah, I'm not big on social media.
No, hey, me either.
um, so that's why I missed it. So I do find learning about this stuff very interesting, though. So learn something new.
that case, yeah. No, I love that pick. So I think it's back around to Arwyn for our number three picks.
It is indeed.
I'm so glad to have you both here to keep things going because I get so lost in the conversations. They're such good conversations and the insights. I love the enthusiasm. It's infectious, and I
Hmm.
love the different perspectives. It helps me see things differently. So I'm I'm grateful for that. Anyway, my number three choice. This is also Star Trek. Um, Star Trek heavily represented here so far.
Sure is, isn't it?
Um,
Which I'm going to interject for a second. I'm very, very surprised at, considering how
right? Me too.
obvious the Star Wars would be for
Mhm.
trilogies. Feels like we've
Yeah, me
all
too.
gone, like, get that. We're going to try and focus on Star Trek. So
It's a
sorry.
bit like that. Yeah.
So this is from Star Trek Picard. This is season three, episodes 2 through 5, which were disengage, 17 seconds, and no win scenario. Oh, and I'm cheating a little bit. I'm gonna add imposters, which is the next one after that. So actually 2, 3, 4, 5. No, I was right. So this isn't technically a trilogy, but I have to include imposters in this too. So for those who don't remember, um, and there were a couple I could have chosen from Picard easily. This one won out because season three was just so spectacular. Um, I could have just listed all 10 episodes and tried to justify it. But this was when they first met the adversary, the main adversary, and they were trying to hide from the adversary. And they were on their back heel for a good deal of it. And then they finally got away, only to find that they were in a bigger cage. Um, after they had gotten away from this adversary, to find that now all of many, many more people were out to get them, were looking for them. And how was that without spoilers? I know we're spoiler light on this.
Season three's been out long enough. Don't worry about it. Go for it.
All right. So I'm gonna just hit a few points that I liked from this particular series. I liked the callback to Rios uh, from the second season and the Mariposas when he stayed back in the 21st century
Hmm.
and formed that organization, because that was the organization that it was kind of it was uh, acutely refer or what's the word I'm looking for? It was subtly referenced that, she was like Crusher was in this Doctors Without Borders kind of scenario, and I think they had called out the Mariposas at some point. So I thought that was pretty cool. Um, can we talk about the awesome portal weapon for a second?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Coolest thing. One of the coolest things I think they've ever introduced in Star Trek.
Creative genius.
So terrifying too. Um, so my favorite character in Picard is Raffi, and to see Raffi just racing against the clock, knowing that something terrible is going to happen, and only able to get to that planet in time to see, something from a video game, the Portal video game, where the portal opens underneath that building and then drops it on top of itself. I That was such a standout moment for me. Um, I liked the character development. It was a lot of character development in this. The relationship that was developed between Raffi and Worf. How Seven and Picard increased their relationship. Crusher and Picard, all around their son. Uh, Riker and Crusher, Riker and Picard and Shaw. Can we just shout out to Shaw? Oh my gosh, that
No.
one of the best. No, yes, one of the best introductions of a character I think I've ever seen. Um, Vatic, terrifying.
Hmm.
The way that actor played her, no notes, flawless. Um, the little, the shorthand that only two people who have known each other for 40 years can develop between Picard and Riker was just lovely. Um, Riker throwing an asteroid at the strike,
Again, creative genius.
so good, so good. And then Row, just Row. That's all I have to say.
Hmm.
Just brilliant. Oh, I will add one last thing. I've never seen a more terrifying starship, even in the Kelvin universe, than I have the Intrepid. When it raised in the frame and its nacelle was like burning and it
Hmm.
just looks so pissed off. Um, yeah, that's my number three choice for those three episodes.
I am.
Four episodes
I.
technically.
I'm gonna give you the four. I am
Yay! Thank you.
so happy you picked it, and I actually feel, having listened to you go through that, I really restricted myself because I loved Star Trek Picard, but in particular season three. I'm so glad you picked that. I can't really add anything more than what you've just said either, but just they nailed everything on the head throughout that entire season, and seeing my favorite crew all coming back together and get to experience how the relationships have developed and evolved and are continuing to. And I think they really got that awkwardness perfect between Crusher and Picard right before they start getting into the heat of all that stuff regarding Jack. Um,
Yeah,
uh,
and I could have
that's, yeah.
very easily chosen the last three episodes too.
When the Enterprise
The only
D comes
reason,
out, oh,
yeah, the only reason I chose this over that was because I love the tension and I love the existential angst.
hmm,
And I loved how terrifying the suspension or the suspense was. Then they carried it through the three episodes, and it was so satisfying
yeah,
when they finally were able to get out from under the thumb of that of Vatic. Oh, it was such good television.
It was a proper cat and mouse sci-fi standoff at its absolute finest. I can't think of another scenario that they've done that kind of sequence anywhere near as perfect as that. And it's the brilliant irony, as you said, of them finally escaping and having that moment of um proper Star Trekness with the new life form as well,
Oh, right.
which
I
was
forgot
just so
about that. Yeah.
beautiful. And you had the proper Star Trek music in the background of it, and you had all that hope come back through that you really felt with it. For it all to be taken away as soon as they realise that they're actually surrounded in this galaxy with people out to get them.
Yeah.
And it just builds that angst right back up again. Sorry, Ben, I think you were going to say something.
No, I love the pick. I don't have much more to add. Gone into watch this very late because I didn't have enough money at the time to be able to justify having a streaming channel, even though I want it. And one of the things I heard very early, which was in my head a semi spoiler, but wasn't the spoiler that I thought it was I heard Jack Crusher. I went, he's come from back from the dead. It was like, and it was like, no, it was a son, and it was like, oh, that's the spoiler that I want to have, and when it's turned itself. So I heard about this guy. I didn't know his name at the time, but it was Shaw. It was like somebody going, "This cat a complete idiot. I don't know if I can like him." Actually, yeah, turned out brilliantly. So yeah, I just want to say, quick heads up for yes, I did love Ro coming back. It wasn't my top 5 side characters, which we've talked about before. Um, Shelby also heads up for her coming back. Um, also Forge and his daughters, including one of his real life daughters
Yeah,
as well,
yeah.
there as well. And yeah, I do think Raffi's a great character, but I'm more of a 7 and 9 fan, and actually that couple, actually I've really enjoyed it. I've really enjoyed
They're
their
fire.
couple there. Uh,
The show really wanted to bring back so many people. There were talks I've read interviews and whatnot. So there were talks of getting Voyager cast members back beyond Tuvok. They were talking about Janeway. They were talking about Kim and Beltran and all these people. They were talking about more DS9 as well, and they just ran out of money. It all boiled down to that. They essentially ran out of money, so they had to scale back on it a bit, which is
oh,
unfortunate.
Tuvok coming back, actually, that was brilliant. I don't know
How
which episode that was, but Tuvok coming back.
how much did the hairs raise on your body and you get a chill when you suddenly realise that that wasn't Tuvok?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
That was
that creepy
done.
smile.
Oh,
Is
it was done so brilliantly.
Mm.
You know, I'm gonna start rewatching season 3 after this recording, right?
Yeah, I'll do it with you. Yeah, it was great.
24-hour stream of I don't know how many hours it is, but actually it's probably only 10 episodes now, isn't it? So
You're onto
okay,
something there. That's a good idea. Let's put a pin in that. Something to come back to.
yeah, okay, yeah, no, of it. So yeah, thank you for that. So actually, that actually semi relates to my episode, my third pick actually.
Oh,
Don't know
that's
again.
nice. Okay.
So we've had a trilogy of episodes. We've had a trilogy of seasons. I'm going to go for a trilogy of shows. So
Ooh.
starting in the 80s and ending in the early noughts, we've got the Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager. And unlike now, where the seasons are all different points in time and related, these were all at the same time they were being released. And they were all related. So the end of TNG was at the beginning of DS9. It was at the same time period. And then when TNG stopped, Voyager jumped in, and you were running two of these two shows running at the same time. They were running at the same time period. So whatever was happening in DS9 was happening in Voyager. And that's the Marquis being killed, which they found out about. They even went back in the episode, and Voyager found out that something about the Dominion War going on, which they had no idea about. Even had a crossover between the Next Generation and Deep Space Nine episode, and actually, even in Voyager, you saw Quark and Morn doing their thing. And these shows, especially the Next Generation, got me into Star Trek back in the 90s. As I said, watching it on Sky One. These were in syndication, more TNG because that was said back in the 90s, and more of that was out. Yeah, all three. These are the reasons I am a Star Trek fan. I know I also watch a couple others, including Stargate SG-1, but these ones got me there to Star Trek more than than say Stargate SG-1, for example. Yeah. So that's my number 3 pick. Any other thoughts?
I love the creativity of your pick. And if I go into my thoughts, we'll be here till next week. 3 phenomenal shows. TNG, similarly, my absolute favourite. It's what introduced me to Star Trek. Voyager, absolutely loved it. Deep Space Nine is one which I've mentioned before. I'm very sad that I didn't give much of a chance to until a couple of years ago, and completely fell in love with it. I was one of those people who really didn't give it much attention at the time, and I regret that. It's a piece of absolute genius. A very different kind of Star Trek show, and I think unloved in its time. And it's got an absolutely phenomenal, massive following now, which I'm very glad of. No, I'm not going to say much else. Just 3 absolutely brilliant Star Trek shows that I think really helps set up and shape what Star Trek is today. And you know what? Without any of those shows, we wouldn't have what we've got today.
Well, I definitely agree. I know the original series inspired a lot. Even the animated, to a degree, was a continuation of that influence. That there's not. I would say this was a bigger influence, in my opinion, on what's going on today. Whether it's Lower Decks, Discovery, even though that was originating at the time of TOS, just before it. I'm sure I'm missing out something. Whether Picard was definitely related to that, of course. I'm probably missing something out as well. But Owen, any thoughts before I
Just
start drawing?
this is the kind of out of box thinking that makes me like this podcast so much. Yeah, that's I don't know what to say. It's that I think what you said in terms of it being, the germinal trio of series that gave us all these great moments that we have today, between Lower Decks and Stranger Worlds and the beauty of Discovery, and thank you. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not going to say much more on it because 3 great series, including my favourite series, and they were probably all exceeded, I think, 170 episodes each. So there's a lot to talk about there. So yeah, leave that for another time. So that's my number. You pick TNG, DS9, and Voyager.
Fantastic, thank you again. Which takes me to my number 3. I'm gonna pull us back into Star Wars because I feel like we've been neglecting her a little bit. And I'm going to talk about the prequel trilogy, which I think we might get a few people going. Hang on a minute, how's that your number 3? What about the original?
That's what
trilogy.
number 2 and 1 is for, isn't it?
You never know.
Spoilers.
You never know. Spoilers. Exactly, Arwyn. The prequel trilogy, there's so many elements to it that I love, and bearing in mind that as a kid, I watched the original trilogy, so episodes 4, 5, and 6, before episode 1 came out in the movies. So I'd experienced them. I loved them. But the prequels, I guess, they were hitting me at the right age, at the right interest level. The graphics were better. The lightsaber battles were cooler. They were more energetic. I mean, the excitement. How many times have we seen that meme of the sports stadium going wild when Maul unleashes the second half of that lightsaber? It's like, oh my god! And that was genuinely the reaction that most people had when they saw that scene for the first time. Just adding that new creativity, new alien species we hadn't seen before, and an element that I didn't get as a kid anywhere near as much, but watching it back now, I get so much as the politics, and actually how interesting the politics in these 3 episodes, episodes 1, 2, and 3, actually is, and you can see what's going on with Palpatine and how he's gaining more power and what that's leading to. Very, very, very interesting stuff. And I know that gets criticised a lot by people as well as sort of slowing it down, but I think it's absolutely critical to the storyline and the lead up to Order 66 and the change to the Empire. And then, of course, you've got the creation of Darth Vader, and I'd seen the original series, I knew who he was, but there were so many people my age and similar watching episode 3 for the first time, having never seen the original trilogy, but knowing who Darth Vader was, going, oh my god. So that was a lovely twist for them as well, but I think they landed episode 3 so beautifully, and that transformation of Anakin into Vader. Could I nitpick elements of it? Absolutely, I could. But anything that I could nitpick, Clone Wars rectifies tenfold. So I won't. So yeah, that's my number 3. It's Star Wars: The Phantom Menace. Who, of course, isn't? I can't talk about the Phantom Menace and not mention the god that is Liam Neeson. Attack of the Clones, episode 2, and then episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. What are your thoughts?
I'm glad you picked it, and I probably in my head I knew you would pick that reason. And yeah, the thing I liked was the exploration of some of the other areas, including Coruscant, getting to see that, whether it's the nightclubs or Dex's Diner to Jedi Temple to Senate room, whatever you want to call that. If it was in the UK, it would be a house, but I think that's similar in the States, if I remember correctly. But it's something like that. Yeah, some of the lightsaber battles. Well, okay, all the lightsaber battles were great, actually. Pod racing, I loved. Naboo, as we've seen 2 weeks ago, or hopefully you've seen, and if not, go and see it. Talking about Naboo, how that looks at that planet there, whether it's the under city. I'm getting my own picks mixed into that, but the under the water part and the land part. Actually, the outfits on Naboo, again, that's related to another episode, and I'm not doing this deliberately, honestly.
Keep plugging it. Keep plugging it.
Yeah. It. Yeah, I like that. It's again to a degree I like the politics as well. To me, it didn't go far enough, but then again, it probably wouldn't be a Star Wars film if it was completely politics related. So
There is that, absolutely. The other bit I wanted to mention about lightsabers, which I forgot, is obviously you've got this um this difference in the lightsaber fighting style between episodes 1, 2, 3, where it's very fast, fancy, aggressive, stylish, sexy, to episodes 4, 5, 6, which was originally done where it was very slow, very basic, and there was more focus probably on the Force. And again, kind of headcanon, but I think this logic works. Obviously, at the time of episodes 1, 2, and 3, the Jedi are at the height of their power. There's thousands of them. They're training together constantly. So, yes, their lightsaber skills are going to be way up here versus episodes 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and the TV shows post episodes 1, 2, and 3 that you have now, where you see the lightsaber style very, very slow, kind of robotic, because they don't have that access to the training anymore. They're either training by themselves or they're being trained by Jedi who were not trained at the temple. So yeah, I wanted to add that bit in too.
Yeah. You talk about the moment that Darth Maul's second saber lit up.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, I remember that. I was out of my seat for that. That was pretty cool. But the one that really got me was Dooku and Yoda, because apparently that had been spoiled for people on social media. But
Oh
because I'm not on social media, I had a chance to experience that for the first time, and total surprise to see Yoda fight, and that was incredible. All the Yoda stuff, very good, very good. Um, Seeing him fallible is great, and I think I'm glad you brought up the prequels because I think they're getting more credit than they did initially. They were,
yeah.
some people panned them kind of hard when they first came out, but they're getting their due now, which I like, and I think Clone Wars has helped tremendously with that. But the story stands up on its own.
Oh, it does.
Um, it's beautiful locations, beautiful outfits, beautiful, so many beautiful things incorporated into it. I mean, come on, Yoda taking down those Crimson Guards. That's another standout
Yeah,
moment
you
for me.
go away. You go away.
Yeah, you go away now. Um, and he's so sassy. You got to see a little bit of that in the Clone Wars with Asajj Ventress too,
Yep.
when she was trying to assassinate the Neimoidian king. I think that's who it was. And it was like, strong with the Force you are, but not that strong. Yeah. I love that moment so much. But I was going to mention Obi-Wan and Anakin, their fight on Mustafar at the end. So heartbreaking.
Oh yeah.
So well done. I tell you, Ewan McGregor is a gift.
Isn't he?
He's such a gift to that character. Oh,
And
just the
that's
ability to bring a youth to it and yet channel Alec Guinness at the same time.
he's phenomenal.
Exceptional.
He really is
Mm,
exceptional, and that's why I was so happy with the Obi-Wan show as well. I think they did that really good justice as a sort of
there too.
middle point between episode 3 and A New Hope.
Hmm. Yeah.
don't know if this is official legends, but I'm thinking about between New Hope and that, and why Obi-Wan's so young in the prequels, looks so young in prequels, compared to Alex Guinness, when he was in A New Hope. Is like the sands of Tatooine have that effect on people.
Maybe that's why Anakin hated sand.
Mm,
Not good for his
maybe
complexion.
not good for his complexion. Yeah. Well, good choice.
Thank you.
Excellent
Yes,
choice.
that's my number 3, the prequel trilogy from Star Wars.
So
I believe
that's
that
yeah, 9 picks in
means,
total. So what we round two, aren't we? Uh,
We
yeah, we're in round
are.
two. So I think that's me up
It
next,
is
right?
indeed.
Yeah. So my number two pick is from Star Wars. Um, so my first three were Star Trek. Now number two is Star Wars. This is Star Wars Andor. And this is episodes 8 through 10, which are Narkina 5, Nobody's Listening, and One Way Out, which are better known as the prison arc. I don't know if Hopefully, you both have seen.
I have.
Okay.
All I'm gonna say is that poor guy who can't swim.
Right?
Oh,
I just couldn't believe it.
Can't swim! You
uh,
talk about a gift. Andy Serkis,
Oh yeah.
he was a
yes.
gift to that. So, just some points that I loved. I mean, it, it it was such a meta commentary on police brutality, and I don't know how things are. I'm going to try not to get too deep here. I don't know how things are in the UK in terms of incarceration, um, but here in the US, many of our prisons, our correction facilities, are privately subsidized, and there's a big criticism, and rightfully so, um, that it's just another way of enslaving people, for profit, and and disproportionately affecting people of color and other minorities. And I think this arc, touched on that so brilliantly. Just the dehumanizing, the prison itself, how it was set up, um, just showing how it saps your will to exist, and your will to resist, the way it's structured with the rewards, being you get taste to your food, and you don't get to have an electrified floor at night, or um, the reward structure, the fake countdown to your prison sentence being up, and then that being bogus, and the tension, the way that it was built, it felt like when I watched it the first time, I had trouble watching the next episode because it was so oppressive and I was so down. Um, but I had to see what had happened. And then it built, into the gaslighting, and then the horrible, and trigger warning, content warning for anyone. I'm going to be talking about self-harm here for a moment. Um, the poor guy who lost his will to live and completed suicide in the first in Narkina 5, to then fast forwarding a few months to the old guy on the work crew, on Andor's work crew, who couldn't keep up, who ended up being euthanized, because it couldn't keep up. And I know this is heavy stuff. I'm going to move off of this in a second. But the gaslighting and the misinformation and the slow build of the oppression, and then just the importance of hope, how Andor held on to hope and held on to this idea that he was going to get out, and how that prison system was like a crucible for him. Like he just wanted to make money and get away from everything and not be involved at all. He just wanted to get as far away from the Empire as possible. And then he got arrested on trumped up charges and dragged in anyway. And seeing what was going on and what had been done to him, and the camaraderie that he felt with the other people, kind of shaped his identity in terms of the rebellion and in terms of wanting to help. In addition to what was going on with his foster mother, on Ferrix, and her views. So I thought it was beautiful. Um, and the realities of violence, and how violence shapes us and traumatizes us, and but I will admit, I mean, Andy Serkis was awesome. That line, "I can't swim," was such a welcome relief, to a very heavy subject, and that's why it's my number two choice, because it was so that Andor is probably my favorite Star Wars series ever. Um, and it's so difficult to watch over again because it's so tense. But it's so brilliantly done. And like you said, there's no lightsabers or anything. It shows this other aspect of the world. It shows the dangers of fascism and the dangers of imperialism, and uh, it was just beautifully done.
Wow. I'm so glad you picked it. Thank you. I'm not going to add anything else to it simply because I can't top what you've said. Just everything that you've talked about those 3 episodes there, to me, it's all part of what makes Andor the phenomenal series that it is. I know some of it's very deep and very serious, but it is definitely part of what makes it such a brilliant show.
And when you were going through that, it almost made me think that that could be a Star Trek episode. Is about imprisonment and stuff like that. Be a topic there.
Good parallel. You're right. That very easily could have been a Star Trek episode too.
Yeah.
Definitely the themes it's exploring.
And yeah, a couple of things that stood out for me, especially towards the end, was when you were watching down at the other area that there was some kind of problem at. I can't remember what it was. I think they found out about what was going on, so they got rid of them. And that euthanization at the end, towards the end, and even and the people who were going to be released soon, Andrew Serkis's character going, yeah, and it's actually dawned on him, this guy, even though he might be going on, that it was like, I've got to try to escape because some criminals are like that. Even though he was there on a trumped up charge, and it's like, actually, they're not going to let me free. I've got to get out of here. It's like,
Yeah, his transformation from going from the good little soldier, the good little prisoner, trying to get off for good behavior, and just really pushing and being and I'm talking about Andy Serkis's character,
Yeah.
to being the leader, of the revolt was just, oh, so well done. It was so beautiful to see his character development and that change when he recognized, you know, and a lot of us, you could say a lot of us, we're not enslaved, but when we're working these jobs and our managers don't exactly treat us the best, and you hear these horror stories about managers and the whole quiet quitting thing, and um, you realize, when they say, "Hey, but we're a family here at this business," and they try to gaslight you in all these different ways, and it's like, no, I'm here to do my work at the time that I said I was going to, at the particular rate. We're not family. I'm your employer, or I'm your employee, and you're not going to take advantage of me. Um, anyway, well, I'm gonna pivot away from that and back to Ben, who I think it's your turn for your number two choice, right?
it is my number two. Um, I wish I could say this trilogy of people are friendlier, but not really, to be honest. But my number two pick is three aliens that were introduced into DS9, and I've heard them say that they were putting these in hoping one would stick. All three stuck, and those are from DS9, Founders, Jemadar, and the Vorta, which were the big three Dominion aliens that we got any time with there that were absolutely amazing. I think, there's one played by uh, uh, Vaughan Armstrong, who we mentioned before. One played by I've got Andrew Serkis in my head now. I wish
Jeffrey
one of them was
Combs.
Jeffrey Combs, and and the founders there as well. They are some of the best villains there. Whether that is the Klingons on steroids, with no honor or of lust or honor, to the Vorta who are there to spy with terrible eyesight and taste, but brilliant hearing. Yeah, that was played very well. And the founders, which, okay, it was mainly saw two characters, which were Odo and uh, female changeling. Still, they were played brilliantly, in my opinion, and they were my one of the best antagonists in the whole of Star Trek. Yeah, I think. Okay, I think I put the Borg ahead of them, but on my head, they are there with the Klingons and the Founders. Klingons and the Founders, Klingons and the Romulans. In my head as villains. These, yeah, I don't think DS9 would be what it was without these three species.
Agreed.
So, um, any other thoughts?
Just great choice. I mean, I didn't know that they were throwing them in just hoping one of them would stick. You would never know it
Yeah.
because they interrelate so well together.
I don't know how true that is, but I'm sure I remember it from an interview from one of my DVD box sets. It's like, oh, one of the wouldn't expect all three to go. It was just like expecting, hoping one of them would work. So out of these, so I'm probably over exaggerating when I say yeah, but
Yeah, I'll just keep my comments brief. I agree with you completely. They're an incredible antagonist, and they outshone the Cardassians in some ways. And they were certainly not only were they terrifying, but how they interrelated made perfect sense together. Made perfect sense, and they were methodical and interesting. Each one a different, kind of have logos, pathos, and ethos represented with each of them. With the Jem'Hadar being the muscle, and the Vorta just keeping everything in line, and the changelings, the founders, being the brains behind the whole thing, the tacticians. Yeah, great choice.
any thoughts, Olympus?
Nothing I can really add. I love that analogy that you just put at the end there, Arwyn. It just tees it off very nicely. Um, Again, brilliant pick, Ben. I literally don't have anything else I can add to what's already been said.
Yeah, to be honest, yeah. Other than going to a deep dive of these species, I haven't got much more to say. Other than two of them are actually bred. We find out one originates from a species before that, or they are still a species, but one that would have bred. But yeah, we find out these are basically test tube aliens, uh, to the Dominion, and that makes it even more interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's my three number two pick. The Founders, Jemadar, and the Vorta.
Thank you. On to my number two. I'm gonna
Yes,
keep us with
please.
Star Trek this time. This is a trilogy that involves augments, terraforming gone bad, and time traveling whales. So, of course, I'm talking about what I refer to as the Spock trilogy. Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, Star Trek III: The Search for Spock, and Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home. My first exposure to the original series was actually Star Trek IV. Um, it was part of a collector's edition DVD set that my gran had bought, and I was receiving every fortnight. For me, that's what introduced me to Star Trek, which I've mentioned on a previous podcast.
Thank you, Gran.
Thank you, Granny Helen. Yeah,
Yeah.
honourable mention. She realised how much I loved it, so that was the first exposure to Star Trek. It was Star Trek 4, not first exposure to Star Trek, first exposure to TOS, because with the Next Generation box set came all of the movies as well. They were intermixed through the different editions. I love each of those movies. Probably 2 and 4 more than 3, just because I think 3 is a little bit slower. But it's still brilliant in its own right. I mean, 2, all I've got to say is Khan. The whole relationship between Kirk and Khan is phenomenal. Chekhov plays a great part in it. He plays possessed Starfleet officer to a T. But no, I love the acting through that. The story was good. The whole climax with Spock sacrificing himself was heartbreaking. Then you get that lovely hope at the end when it pans to Genesis planet and you see his coffin photon torpedo tube lying there. It's just going, why are they showing us that at the end of this movie? I wonder. Which leads you nicely into Star Trek 3. And then Star Trek 4 is probably one of my favorite Star Trek time travel scenarios ever. The dynamic of the crew is great. It's basically an entire movie without the Enterprise, which is very, very rare for a Star Trek movie or show that focuses on an Enterprise crew. And yeah, again, I can't remember the name of the actress, but the actress who plays the character that's looking after the whales, I think again she was absolutely brilliant, and the story throughout it was great, and Leonard Nimoy continuing to rebuild Spock's character through that movie was again done absolutely perfectly. I can't think of a single bad thing that I could say about Star Trek 4. I really can't. As much as we're talking about an alien species that comes to Earth, destroying everything in its path, to talk to some whales, which sounds like a Lower Decks scenario. And by the way, I love Lower Decks with a passion, but it does sound like a Lower Decks episode in some respects, but they do it so brilliantly. So yes, that is my number 2.
I'm glad that, and in my opinion, that is the classic trilogy from Star Trek. Is those? It's not Star Trek 1, 2, and 3. It is the one that actually has all a relation to it. You start with the Genesis planet, then you have the Klingons trying to find the Genesis planet, and the crew taking over the Klingon warbird, bird of prey, and then you have them traveling back in time in that bird of prey, attacking a whaling ship, bringing back to Wales. Which, funny enough, I think actually technically the image is two females. I think, or is it two males? I cannot remember, but
They are. I
it's
think. I think the image they've got is 2 whales of the same species. Ironically, yes.
yes, yeah,
Not same
but
species, same sex. Oh, sorry.
yeah, and it's just like uh, it's it is, as I said, it probably up until you get the episodes in Enterprise where they have 3 in a row. This is probably the first and only for a long time that is actually a trilogy. Uh, it's yeah,
Yeah,
I'm glad you picked it.
Thank
yeah,
you.
this is the quintessential TOS movie trilogy. No doubt about it. I saw this out of sequence. Um, my first Star Trek, see, I was, oh, so embarrassing to say this now, but when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, I was anti Star Trek. I was all into Doctor Who. I was like, so I know, say it isn't so, Arwen, but it's true. I was just like, oh, goddamn Star Trek. Doctor Who is where it's at. I used to get into fights with my classmates about it. And then my friends dragged me to go see Star Trek 3. The first ship I ever saw, the first Federation ship I ever saw was the Oberth, was the Grissom. And I just fell in love. I just fell in love with that ship. I was like, oh, and then I was so upset what happened to it. But I was, oh, that was, and then I was just reeled in, and then I had to go back and rent Wrath of Khan, and then I was just like, okay, okay, fine, and that sucked me in. But brilliant choice. Star Trek 4 to this day is still quotable. Well, they all are,
So like
I mean,
double dumbass on you, or
yes, double dumbass on you. Um, to it was neat that they had the punk rocker from the bus show up
Yeah.
on the second season
Picard.
of Picard.
Oh my god, I
Yeah,
didn't connect that before. Yes.
yeah, they had the
And
same. They brought the same actor in. That was so good.
if you
Um,
look up on YouTube, or if you're on YouTube, look on my channel, and you can go back and find the Picard episodes, and I actually have him as the face on the front of the irrelevant episode.
that sounds worth checking out. Hint, hint, audience. Um, yes, you should check that out. But everything from Khan's, he tasks me, quoting Moby Dick to um, Dr. McCoy, what is this medieval medicine? It's so good. That
Oh,
they're
the
so great.
lady who grew a new kidney.
Yes, that's right. Oh, I grew a new kidney. Thank you, doctor. Oh, an admiral. There'll be whales here. Sorry. Uh, apologies to everyone
That
from
was
Who,
all
who
the.
does
that
the
was
best Scottish
decent.
accent?
That was decent.
Okay, thank you. I'll take it. Good ma. That's great.
Yeah, I could start taking the mick. Who sounds most Scottish, American or the Scot?
Oh,
No,
definitely the
we don't
American.
care.
Anyway, no, I love that trilogy, and I'm glad we got there. And there's so much stuff there that I enjoyed.
Oh, thank you both, thank you both. Which means we're moving on to our number one picks. Arwen,
Ooh,
you're up.
yeah. All right. I'm not gonna, in the interest of time, I'm not going to draw this out. My number one has to be Star Wars episodes 4 through 6. Um, New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. It's for nostalgia reasons. It is the. I was going to joke and say Lord of the Rings is my top trilogy, because it is. I can watch that over and over and over again, but I can also watch anytime I'm not feeling great, if I'm sick or have the flu or whatever, um, and I don't feel like watching anything else, I will pop in my DVDs and watch A New Hope over again, or The Empire Strikes Back, or Return of the Jedi. It just has so many great moments to it. And by the way, I think one of you mentioned it, and I was so glad you said it because when I was talking about our top five droids, and I mentioned C3PO as my number one, I forgot to mention that C3PO carried the first 30 minutes of A New Hope. One of you had mentioned in one of your other podcasts, if it hadn't been for him, R2D2 never would have been able to deliver that message to Obi-Wan Kenobi, would have been carted away by the Jawas. So thank you for that acknowledgement.
I think that
Um,
was Ben that said that bit.
Thank you, Ben.
Actually, very
Um,
true. But yeah, they are the dynamic of the show. They're the ones that make it go on and carry on.
yeah, there's just so many great moments. The introduction of Yoda in Empire Strikes Back, they actually lost. It was a beautiful 3-act structure. Um, that you see in plays and whatnot. There were so many cool moments. The evolution of Leia, the marriage of mysticism and sci-fi, Jabba's barge. The whole first 30 minutes of Return of the Jedi are just cinematic magic. Um, I could go on and on, but yeah, that I brought it for nostalgic reasons. I queued up like when it was only shown in the theaters and the queues were around the block. Um, I was one of those kids, so excited to see uh, those movies for the first time. That's my
I
number one.
can imagine. Uh, yeah, the weird thing is, I was probably in my 20s when I first saw this. And bear in mind, my 20s, as I said, I was a 90s kid, so I first saw these films. So when the prequels came out, um, they were all over the relevant stores, and it was just like, I've got to buy these and just actually see what this is all about. And fell in love with them. And I don't know if I have the box set I bought up there. Oh, I don't know, but I've got some of the Star Wars stuff up there on the shelf behind me. Back in the days when I bought them, I absolutely love the trilogy.
What a brilliant pick. I do not blame you for having that as your number one. It's it's what kicks Star Wars off, and I agree with you as well. That 3-part structure, very what's it called? I've lost the words. Just like theatre production with 3 different parts, all interlinked and woven very, very nicely together. Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful in its own right, and without that, we wouldn't have Star Wars.
That's right.
Very true. Very true.
What about you, Ben? What was your number 1 choice?
Ooh. So it's a bit of that and a bit of that. I have actually got a trilogy of trilogies. Got the 3 Star Wars trilogies. You got the original trilogy, got the prequels, and you've got the sequels. And I actually, to a certain degree, I actually love them all. Some bits more than others, but I like them all. Whether that's New Hope with R2 and 2D2 and C3PO, whether that's the interaction between Leia, Han, and Luke, whether that's Finn, Rey, who I actually loved Rey's and Finn's interaction on Sand Planet that's not Tatooine, who I've suddenly
Jakku.
forgotten, Jakku, who Luke agrees, why would you? That is nowhere. That's, as I said, the pod racing, the lightsaber fights in the prequels. They're all not. Yeah.
Let's not forget not just the starships, but the star cruisers, star destroyers. You know, the spaceships that they designed and implemented into those movies are utterly brilliant.
Oh, I agree. And even though I am in love with the Star Trek ships, yeah, the Star Wars ones are all great. Yeah, whether that's the Star Destroyers, the X-wings, TIE fighters of various different kinds. The memorable quotes, whether it's a trap, to multiple Death Stars or Death Stars as planets. Even Jawas and the Sandcrawlers to the attacks. Even I can even put up with fluffy teddy bears, to be honest. As yeah.
Oh, don't diss the Ewoks. We can't diss the Ewoks.
You really are a fan. If you're gonna put up with the Ewoks, I'm just kidding. I loved the Ewoks when I was a kid.
Yeah, and if I probably watched that in the 80s, I would have probably loved them to bits. But it's I have rounded that up, and I have done this like a top 10 of my favourite things from all me, but it's or all 9. But that's because it's such a big pick. It's like TNG DS9 Voyager. There is a lot there. Like, take for take through, and I hope in another 20 years we are seeing the sequels like we saw the prequels, and giving them a bit more than the loud lot on Twitter and the social media.
We can but hope.
Yeah. Yeah, that's my number 1 pick is any of them all, the trilogies.
Your creativity in your picks is phenomenal. I absolutely love it. I would never have thought of doing a trilogy of trilogies. Beautiful.
Thank you.
I mean, he did a trilogy of characters.
Yep.
He did the trilogy of trilogies. He did I don't remember the rest, but they were all so good, Ben. They were all so
He did
good.
2
A
trilogy
trilogy
of
of seasons,
characters, a trilogy
a
of seasons
trilogy
as
of
well, yeah.
shows,
Trees of Species.
trilogy of species. Yes, you did it all. Yeah, clap, 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 clap.
MVP of this episode goes to Ben.
Mhm. Agreed.
Oh, thank you.
No shade to Olympus, but yeah, that was your creativity is off the charts on this particular episode.
Thank you.
And
Shall
that
we
leads us
think
to
about
Olympus,
Olympus?
right? Yeah.
Alright, so you know how we have that thing where every single episode, no matter what we do, we always end up with at least one pick being chosen, which is the same or very similar. And again, reminder to everyone, we don't tell each other what we've picked. One, I am very, very surprised that we've got through all of these picks without having married up to at least one that's the same. I've been absolutely, this has been such a phenomenal episode to record and discuss. So yes, we do have one that's matched up, so we won't be on this for very long. It is one of my favorite trilogy of episodes in Star Trek, and that is the Best of Both Worlds, parts 1 and 2, and family, for every single reason that Arwyn discussed back on number 4. I think it was your 4th pick. These just shook me to my core for so many different reasons. And I think primarily, it was the first series of episodes in Star Trek The Next Generation where the stakes really were that high. We were entering end of humanity level stakes. They completely blew up the whole dynamic of the Enterprise D when they removed Picard. Even before that, when they introduced Shelby and they added that massive friction into the ship, which they probably needed, to be fair. Again, I'm not going to repeat things. You mentioned Guinan and her relationship and her bringing Riker back to the sort of right mindset. There's so many different things, but ultimately, it really. Oh, I'm trying to think of the right way to round this off. It is a beautiful trilogy of episodes that tells a phenomenal, heart-wrenching, devastating story, and you actually get to see the aftermath and the effect that that has on some of our key characters as well, which you don't get to see in a lot of these serialized TV shows where each episode tends to be very, very separate from the previous. So for that reason, absolutely loved it, and it's where TNG. I love TNG pre that, but it's where TNG really came to life for me. That is my
It's
number
so
one pick.
best. Yeah, you have to let me go third from now on because I need to stop stealing these things from you. But I'm just going to say great minds think alike.
Absolutely that.
Um, and wasn't, I like how you mentioned how different aspects, different parts, the different members of the crew were affected differently. How lovely was it, in my opinion, that we got to explore that in Picard? We got to explore Picard and Seven of Nine sitting with each other and seeing each other as assault survivors,
Yeah.
and also Hugh, bringing Hugh back into the mix. Justice for Hugh.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and justice for Shelby too, by the way. Uh, yeah, I I won't add more except it was lovely. That's that is the kind of episode that it's amazing is when it's referenced in several series beyond that.
Yeah.
That seminal moment has been brought up time and time again through the series that have followed, has been touched on. Good.
Yeah,
I mean, good. I'm
well
patting
done.
myself. Good choice.
Thank you.
But you made it number one.
I did.
So
I did.
yeah, so you win.
I can't believe that's the one we had twice. No, I was expecting the original trilogy for Star Wars to come up
That's the one I
there.
was expecting as well. And that one's actually in my honourable mentions.
Yeah, but wow, I'm glad you did that. Shall we quickly sum up what we picked?
Yes.
Shall we do it in
Arwyn.
the same?
Yeah, let's go with the same order. That sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay. So my number 5 was Star Trek Voyager, the Scorpion arc. My number 4 was Star Trek The Next Generation, the Best of Both Worlds arc. My number 3 was Star Trek Picard, the Trapped in the Nebula arc. My number 2 was Star Wars Andor, the Escape from Prison arc. And my number 1 was Star Wars episodes 4 through 6.
Olympus, who I think is that way, despite him being that way for me.
So my number 5 was The Mandalorian seasons 1, 2, and 3. My number 4 was the Kelvin timeline movies. Number 3 was the Star Wars prequel trilogy, so episodes 1, 2, and 3. Number 2 was what I call the Spock trilogy, so Star Trek 2, 3, and 4. And then number 1 is The Best of Both Worlds, parts 1 and 2, and Family from Star Trek The Next Generation.
Oh, and my top 5 were Seven's in a not Matrix, Adjunction, 2 of 9, 3 of 9, and 4 of 9. And then from Enterprise, it was the Vulcan trilogy. From Star Trek, it was TNG, DS9, and Voyager. And from mostly Deep Space Nine, we got Founders, Jem'Hadar, and Vorta. And then we've got the trilogy of trilogies. You've got the original trilogy, prequel trilogy, and sequel trilogy.
Trilogies. You deserve a gold medal for that.
You do.
Oh, thank you.
Well earned.
So, I suppose this one's easy to work out. What do we reckon the scores on the doors are?
Oh, it's got to be Star Wars, surely. No, I think I'm gonna go Star Trek. With I'm not even gonna try and do maths at this time of night over here now, but with most of them, I think Star Wars maybe only had between 4 and 5 picks.
Any change on that? So, it was Star Wars 5, Star Trek 10,
Nice.
which I was expecting that to be a lot closer, actually.
Yeah.
I thought it was only me who was going to go Star Trek mostly.
That surprised me, and I hope that surprises a lot of people watching as well. That something which looks like a very Star Wars directed topic has turned out so very Trek. So, honourable mentions. We've got a few probably to talk through. I'll give us a very quick start, change up the sequence a little bit. So, oh, look at Ben's. He's got a pad full of them. That's a bit exciting. So I've limited to 3 due to time. So Star Wars the original trilogy, Star Wars the sequel trilogy. So I won't talk about either of those because we've talked about them a bit in the previous picks, etc. The one that's only been very briefly mentioned, but I do have on my honourable mentions, is from Enterprise Season 4, what I call the Augment trilogy, which has Brent Spiner. Where there's a guest starring as one of Soong's descendants, and it I can't remember the name of the episodes, but it spans 3 episodes. Explores all the themes you would expect when looking at augments from Khan Noonien Singh's time, and it was just really fun, enjoyable series of episodes in Enterprise, and I was looking forward to hopefully seeing something more of that in future seasons, which unfortunately never happened. So that's my honourable mentions.
Oh, cool. My honourable mentions are going to be. I know we didn't do this in the order that we did it, but sorry. I'm going to quickly go over these. I won't go the ones that the trilogies from Star Wars because those have been mentioned already. But yeah, I did have episode 2 and 3, Star Trek 2, 3, and 4 from the movies, the original season movies. I had the trilogy, another trilogy of species, main species from the Alpha Quadrant / Beta Quadrant, which are the Romulans, Klingons, and the Federation. I had Solo or Han, Leia, and Luke, as well as Rey, Poe, and Finn. I had an episode 1, which was Unification Part 1, 2, and 3 from Discovery, or 3's from Discovery, the other 2 from TNG. Then there was 2 that I wanted to put in here, but problem is, one of them I have not read, and the other one I haven't played 2 of the games. So there was the Thrawn trilogy, which is really famous in Star Wars. I don't know why I'm saying that. If you know what it is, it is. And then there's KOTOR, KOTOR 2, and Star Wars: The Old Republic, all from BioWare, all in the same space of time. Which the reason I haven't done that is because I haven't played KOTOR or KOTOR 2.
If I had thought to
Oh,
span
God.
again outside of games, then that probably would have been nearly number 1. Those 3.
Yeah.
Solid
Arwyn, you.
choices. Yeah, mine. So earlier you had mentioned, I was so glad you gave some attention to them. My probably one of my favorite arcs in Enterprise was the Forge, the Awakening, and Kirshara. Um, I had Star Wars Rebels Season 3, episodes 1 through 3, and then episode 22. Basically, because they're all about the Bendu, um, which I adore. Um, so it's just the setup of Chopper Base. There's some interesting character stuff that happens, but it wasn't enough to warrant putting it into my top 5. But I do love the Bendu. I had Star Trek: The Next Generation, the Klingon Civil War trilogy. Um, Sins of the Father, Reunion, and Redemptions, Part 1 and 2. And then my final one was Star Trek: Wrath of Khan, Search for Spock, and The Voyage Home.
Lovely.
Sorry, I quickly got distracted because something came up on my other screen now, and I was like, "What's that doing?" So,
It's all
but yeah,
good.
no, great pick. Oh, great! No, it wasn't picks, but great honourable mentions. I wish some of those were on there. And I just want to say one other thing, which I only remembered part way through. I did do a poll on my YouTube channel 10 days ago, which was I went, what's your top 5 trilogies from Star Trek and Star Wars? I put the original trilogy, the prequel trilogy, the TOS movie trilogy, which was what Olympus said, so Wrath of Khan, Search for Spock, and Voyage Home. Then we've done the Kelvin trilogy as well, Star Trek Into Darkness and Beyond. And I did have a fifth version, which was A Another, but nobody actually voted for that one. So again, any scores? I tell you what, as Olympus asked earlier, I'm going to go as Arwyn. What do you reckon won out of those ones with 22 people voting?
Oh, I don't know. I'm gonna say the original series trilogy.
Okay. What do you reckon, Olympus? I'm wondering if you froze on screen there for a second,
I'm
or
still here. I'm struggling. Yeah, you know what? Sod it. I'm going to go original series trilogy too.
oh, yeah. So let's start with 5% of the votes. We had the prequel trilogy.
That is
Um,
shocking. Oh no.
okay, 14% of the vote. We had the Kelvin Time Night trilogy,
Okay.
and we had a 55% and a 27% for the next 2, which was 27 being the OS movie trilogy, Wrath of Khan, Search for Spock, and Voyage Home. And the original trilogy was 55%. So obviously, I do have some Star Wars fans on my channel as well. So there we are. That's still open for people to vote, so that can still change. And I've got a couple other votes up there as
You heard it,
so,
everyone. Show the prequel some love. Come on.
yeah. So
On right now.
in that case, can I just say thank you again for coming, Arwyn. It's always a pleasure. Miss you on our Friday games of Star Trek Adventures.
Same.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me back. Really
problem.
appreciate it.
It's
Always fun to
it's
chat to you guys.
it's been an absolute pleasure as always, and I hope to see you on more of these soon as well. Just thank you so
Yeah,
much for taking the
next
time
time
to
I'm
come do
going
it.
third.
Gotcha. We'll need to remember that then.
Yes.
So any other business? So Arwyn, you got anywhere to advertise yourself or?
No, just at Arwyn Babelfish on socials, which I don't use that much. Our Star Trek Aristotle live stream for ELH Mark 1 should be making its debut on YouTube soon, and our special April Fool's episode, where we take on a mysterious and deadly creature in the Mirror Universe, and we all play Mirror Universe versions of our characters. So
Cool.
keep an eye out for that.
Sounds
That was a lot of
awesome.
fun. I got to play a radically different version of my character, and I loved it.
Yeah. I've of having Arwyn play characters in the TTRPG. So go and watch that. But also EMH Mark 1. He's a good channel. He does Star Trek Adventure, so Star Trek's version of D&D. He is good again when it comes to this, and YouTuber when it comes to this. So please go and give him some love over there.
Thank you. He'll appreciate that.
Olympus, where can we find you?
So at Olympus0511, across pretty much everything I can think of. So you'll find me on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube primarily. I do have something on Facebook which I've not looked at in a very long time, so probably worthwhile not looking there. And I always like saying this: if you are searching for a name, please remember to put 0511 after Olympus without a space. Otherwise, you're just going to get a lot of videos of cameras.
Yeah. So at least if you do that, you do get at least one thing of non-cameras, and that's our fellow Olympus. So,
Indeed. Ben, where can we find you?
So if you're not watching this on YouTube, you'll find me on YouTube at TrekWars and Fantasy. Also have a TikTok, which I'm putting up some of my shorts before they get to YouTube, and I'm going to doubly make sure I do that at the moment because YouTube decides it doesn't want to like was my shorts anymore, and it's not even really advertising it to my subscribers. So that's annoying. You can also find me on Twitter at TrekWars Fantasy, and this is my favourite thing to say because there wasn't enough letters to put "and" in there. So that, and we have got a this out on podcasts on Spotify.
It is, yes, it's on Spotify.
Yeah. So it's called Duels Across the Stars.
It is.
It is. So yeah, give that a good look if you want to watch it, or not watch it, listen to it. Your drive or something like that, because I definitely don't recommend you watch something while you're driving, unless you're a passenger. So, yeah. So, if there's anything else to say,
No, not from me. Just thank you both again for an absolutely brilliant episode. I really, really enjoyed that. Thank you to everyone who has taken the time to watch. And please, once again, I'm going to plug this. If you have enjoyed, give us a like, give us a subscribe, and please enter the yes, it's somewhere like there or there or there. It'll be down in sort of that direction. You'll see it about now on the editing, and and yeah, please take the time to comment but below your top 5 trilogies across Star Trek and Star Wars. We'd love to see your thoughts on that too.
Okay, so I suppose may the force be with you. And I know somebody's got to end up having a moan about me doing that. So
Live long and prosper, everyone. Take care. Thanks again.
yeah.